It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Well, today at Happy Families, it's a big day. Today is the Raising Resilient Kids Summit. If you haven't already gotten on board, it's not too late. We do have access available right now via our Facebook page, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families, and our website, happyfamilies.com.au. It starts, well, I guess it depends on when you're listening to this podcast, but it starts this morning if you're listening live. Oh, and I should also mention, you don't have to watch the whole thing. In fact, you don't even have to attend it live. We're going to be putting all of the conversations behind a podcast paywall, and everyone who has signed up for the summit gets to listen at their leisure. Alternatively, you can take the day off and watch one talk after another. They're going to be great conversations. Speaking with Maggie Dent, we're talking with Harvard's Dr. Robert Brooks, the guy who literally wrote the book about resilience. We're talking with Jessica Lahey, New York Times best-selling author of The Gift of Failure. Alfie Cohn is joining us, and just such a great list of so many great people. I can't wait to get into it. Kylie, what do you think about when you think about resilience?
Well, I was actually going to ask you, we talk about resilience all the time, but what's a really succinct definition of resilience?
That's what the whole day is all about. There's a handful of things that I would say make up resilience. The thing that people talk about most is when you bounce back from adversity. But I don't feel like that's an adequate or even necessarily a helpful definition of resilience, because when you think about adversity in your life, how often do you just bounce back? Like something hard happens and you bounce back to be who you were? It just doesn't resonate for me.
I don't think I've ever bounced.
No, that's right. People don't bounce. That's right.
Number one, I haven't bounced. And number two, I don't ever come back the same person because adversity actually changes who I am.
That's right, because we're such complex systems, right? We're not the rubber bouncy ball that literally you drop it and it bounces back, where we've got the psychology and the emotion, the cognition and the social side of things. There's so much going on. So the way that I usually define resilience is it's avoiding maladaptive outcomes.
Which is?
Depression, stress, anxiety, freaking out, anger, crawling into your shell, giving up. That they're typically considered maladaptive outcomes. Now, I also should highlight sometimes they're completely adaptive outcomes, depending on the random adverse experience we're having. Sometimes climbing under the covers and hiding is a perfectly rational and adaptive thing to do, but not usually. Sometimes giving up is a perfectly rational and adaptive thing to do, but not always. So it's avoiding the maladaptive outcomes and experiencing adaptive outcomes when things go wrong, when things are bad, when things are tough.
So when you say all of that, the word that keeps coming to me is having hope.
Yeah.
We can't ever avoid adversity. Like that is a part of the human experience.
100% guaranteed.
But to experience it and have a sense of hope that things will get better, to me, would be to be resilient.
So we haven't planned this conversation, but I just love what you've said. It ties in with two things that are really important. First off, when we define hope in a psychology context, there's something that's out there called hope theory. Two wonderful, good men and fabulous researchers, a guy called C.R. Snyder and Shane Lopez. They're both deceased now, but they were brilliant researchers, and they developed this hope theory, which argues that there are three elements that are necessary for hope. The first is that you have to have a goal, like goal striving, working towards an outcome. You can't have hope if you're not hopeful about something, right? I mean, it's an irreducible element of being hopeful is having something that you're hoping for. The second thing, though, is critically important, and that is pathways to that goal, or to that thing that is hoped for. If you're hoping for something but you have no way of getting there, you will not feel hopeful. You will feel hopeless, yeah. And so not only do you have to have something that you're working towards, you need to have a way to get there. But they also identified just those two things in and of themselves are not enough to give us hope. There has to be a third thing. And that third thing they describe as agency or efficacy. That is, do I believe that I have the power in me, the capacity to walk down that pathway towards that goal? And if I walk down the pathway and the pathway gets closed off for a second, do I believe that another pathway will open up, that I can find another pathway, that I can blaze my own trail? So when we have those three things, we have hope. And when you think about it, based on what you've just described, somebody who's resilient, they are the kind of person who has hope. That is, they believe that there is a thing that's worth pursuing, there's a way to get there, and they believe they can. And people who lack resilience either don't have anything they're working for, don't think they can get there, or don't believe that
they can.
They can, yeah. Really, I think, really important. Now, the second thing that ties in with that I'm so glad you mentioned it, is the word that I like to use for resilience, or a synonym for it, I guess, is optionality. So if I'm a person who is resilient, when things get tough, I see that I have options. If I'm not resilient, when things get tough, I throw my hands up in the air and say, this always happens to me. Nothing ever works out. I have no options. I can't figure this out.
Well, you feel caged.
That's exactly right. So to me, developing resilience in kids is actually about saying, what are your options? And of course, if your kids aren't feeling resilient, you know what they say? I don't have any. Well, I can't do anything. I've got no options. Therefore, our role as parents is to help them to find options, not show them the options, not hand them the options, but help them to discover options. And as we do that, we do what you so beautifully highlighted, so eloquently with one word. You said hope. What we do when we show or help our kids to find and discover options is we become hope builders.
So the other day, I had the opportunity to attend Emily's cross country.
Okay, so for those who are new to the podcast, Emily's our youngest, our 9-year-old daughter.
And she has a friend in her class who's actually a year older than her. So she wasn't running in the same race.
Oh, yeah.
So Emily had her race. She came through. She was great. And then we decided that we would stay so we could watch her friend. So
let's just call her friend Sarah for privacy reasons.
Okay. And Sarah's mum wasn't able to be there. So I wanted to get a little bit of footage of Sarah running a race and just participating in it. Well, we got close to the finish line. There's probably about 200 metres left of the race. And we could see Sarah off in the distance, and she kind of just lost all interest in the race.
Right.
She was off the side of the track and she was looking at trees and, playing with the grass and...
So was she not running at all?
She'd completely stopped. Completely stopped. Emily saw what was going on and she just said, "Hey, Mum, I'm just going to go and help Sarah." And so the next thing, she runs over. So she's not in the track. She's along the side of the track and she's just said, "Sarah, come on, you're so close. Let's just finish this race." And I saw Sarah look at her and she kind of went, "Oh, but," and she's obviously talking about whatever she's seen in the tree. And Emily's like, no, come on, let's go. And so over the next few minutes, I saw Emily really work to encourage Sarah to make it to the finish line. And she got within about probably 20 metres and she left Sarah and said, "It's your turn, keep going." And Sarah ran through the finish line and we all were able to kind of cheer her on.
That story is so cool.
And as you were talking about this idea of being a hope builder, I think that so many of our children struggle with resilience because it is something that we learn. It's not something we're born with. And just like Emily had to encourage Sarah to actually make it to the finish line, our job as parents is to encourage our kids, to help them so that they will get to a place in their lives where they can actually do it for themselves.
Okay, so there's a couple of things in this beautiful, I love this story, a couple of things that I have to draw out and get really specific about. First off, resilience is typically, not always, but typically relational. That is, we are much more likely to persist, do hard things, overcome adversity, get through challenges when there is someone, when there's an Emily in our life who says, "You can get to the finish line. You've got this. Let's do it together." And that's the second thing. Not only is it relational, but when you think about your life and you think about the times where you've faced adversity, quite often the person beside you, they can't do what you have to do, but they've taken every step beside you. There's that. It's not just that it's relational. There's a level of involvement.
Well, Emily was invested.
Yeah.
In Sarah. She was invested in seeing her finish. Like that was really important. And there were so many times through that, 200 metres that they ran together where Sarah was just like, "I can't do this. It's too hard."
Yes.
And she'd kind of stop and take a few steps of just walking. And Emily was right there just going, "No, come on, we can do this. Let's do it." And you'd see that spurt of energy as she kind of kick-started her again.
So I love what Emily's, the specific word she's used, we. Even though it's really Sarah who's got to run the race, there's we. And that's so different to saying you can do this. Because when it's you, it feels like it's you on your own and you're feeling incompetent, you're feeling like it's too hard, you're feeling like you don't have hope and it's just beyond you. So we've got this word we, so important for resilience, so important for relationships. And we've got the involvement that's happening where, I mean, let's say you've got a child who's really struggling. Instead of saying, get up, toughen up, get on with it, saying, let's figure this out. Let's do it together. I mean, to me, that is just so fundamental to growth. And what happens then is that there's a development of competence and capability. The child goes, I can do that. They do feel good and they know that they did it. I mean, we could just pick that apart. I love the story. I'm so glad you shared it. Again, unscripted. The Raising Resilient Kids Summit is on today. We've shared a couple of really useful ideas that can help you to raise resilient kids, and you don't have to do the summit to get that information. But if you'd like to join us today, there's me. I'm doing a presentation to kick things off. Maggie, Dent, Jessica Lahey, like I said, New York Times bestselling author. Oh, Dr. Laura Markham. Dr. Laura has this thing online called Aha Parenting. She is literally one of the world's most loved parenting experts, and she's so kindly joined us. Dr. Robert Brooks from Harvard, Alfie Cohn, who's written Punished by Rewards. He's got so many insightful things to say about resilience. We've also got a former Australian Comic of the Year, Marty Wilson, futurist Michael McQueen, tech guru Yasmin London, James Anderson talking about learnership and helping kids to succeed academically, and a whole lot more. The day kicks off, well, hopefully, if you're listening to this early, real soon, and you can still register now at happyfamilies.com.au or just Google Raising Resilient Kids Summit and Happy Families. That'll give you everything you need to join us. It would be so good to have you as part of what's going to be an absolutely brilliant day. It's the Raising Resilient Kids Summit, presented by happyfamilies.com.au. Hey, thanks for listening to the Happy Families podcast today. A little bit of a sell compared to what we normally do, but hopefully some great ideas for you. Tomorrow, it's I'll Do Better Tomorrow. Kylie and I talking about the stuff that we've done well. Kylie, I hope that you've got a great story for us. I don't know if you can match that awesome little story that you just shared about Emily and Sarah, but that's all tomorrow on the Happy Families podcast. We will speak with you there.